Passenger railway talks. Supporters and opponents look at the long proposed idea of connecting a passenger line between Iowa City and Chicago. Tonight, though, we start with more on that crash out of Marion earlier today. This is the third deadly motorcycle crash, the fourth death from a motorcycle crash within Linn County over the past 10 days. This crash happened just after 4 p.m. in Marion along State Highway 13 at the intersection of Highway 13 and Hennessy Parkway near 151. Marion police say 3 motorbikes were traveling north when an SUV hit one of the motorcycles. 3 people have died in separate motorcycle crashes over the past 10 days. The male motorcyclist died in the crash. His female passenger suffered head and internal injuries. Responders took her to a hospital. Her condition is unknown. Traffic was blocked off for several hours throughout the afternoon following the crash. A Waterloo police officer is on leave following an alleged incident of domestic assault. The Waterloo Cedar Falls Courier reports investigators put Officer James Noss on administrative leave on Thursday. Noss is accused of pushing his wife and was arrested on suspicion of misdemeanor domestic assault. Shots fired early this morning in downtown Cedar Rapids have investigators still working to try to piece all this together. Cedar Rapids police say a large fight broke out before 1 a.m. today. This happened in the 1400 block of 4th Avenue Southeast. Officers say they found a woman on the ground unconscious. It appeared someone had hit her in the head with a glass bottle during the fight. While officers were tending to the injured woman and trying to control the crowd, they say an unidentified male started shooting rounds from an assault rifle. Police gave chase but were unable to capture him, though they did secure the weapon. Responders took the injured woman to a local hospital. Her name and condition have not been made public. The incident still under investigation. A standoff in western Iowa that lasted nearly 12 hours ended after investigators used 4 cans of tear gas to flush a man out of his house. This standoff occurred in Manning, that's in Carroll County. It started Friday night when investigators went to check on the 58-year-old man's welfare. When troopers arrived, they say he met them at the door with a pistol and told them to leave. Investigators say they were on scene for about 12 hours and fired more than a dozen rounds at his house. Police say the man fired 14 shots before they used the tear gas. No injuries from the incident. A mild and cloudy day, though, to start off our weekend across eastern Iowa. More in the coming hours now. We'll bring in meteorologist Charlene Malin for that first alert forecast.
And Chris, there are really 2 stories across the state. Here in eastern Iowa, the cooler conditions and the cloud cover. And then in western Iowa, where they even saw temperatures right around 80 degrees, 81 in Sioux City. That's because they had the sunshine. Hopefully we'll be getting in on some of that sunshine tomorrow. Highs across the area, mainly in the 60s, 65 in Dubuque as well as Cedar Rapids. Decorah and Waterloo both making it into the low 70s. All that thanks to some peaks of sunshine throughout the afternoon. Now temperatures right now generally in the mid 50s. Decorah sitting at 63 degrees. Satellite and radar does show those clouds starting to break up a bit, really pushing off to the east. And that's what we expect heading into tonight. In fact, partly cloudy by midnight in a lot of areas, still hanging around with some of that cloud cover at 55 degrees. Once we really get rid of those clouds, temperatures bottom out right around 50 degrees by early in the morning. We are going to see some of that moisture again go into some patchy fog to start off your Sunday forecast, but some warmer conditions into the afternoon with that sunshine. Of course, we'll give you all the details to that, plus some rain on the way coming up in a few minutes. Chris?
We'll catch up soon. Thank you, Charlene. The recent Republican primary theme continues. States that usually vote blue pick Mitt Romney. States that usually vote red select Rick Santorum. In a state that has voted Republican the last 3 presidential elections, Louisiana Republicans choose Rick Santorum. He holds a commanding lead with 75% of the precincts reporting. Romney's second, Newt Gingrich third, Ron Paul a distant fourth. This holds to recent trends. On Tuesday in Illinois, a state that usually votes Democrat in presidential elections, Romney won with ease. He is the Republican delegate leader by a wide margin in the chase for the nomination. Former Vice President Dick Cheney is recovering tonight after heart transplant surgery today. Mr. Cheney has a long history of heart disease and had been on the list for a transplant for the past 2 years. Surgeons operated on the 71-year-old Cheney in Virginia. Neither Vice President Cheney nor his family know the identity of the donor. $87 million in federal funding remains on the table for the state of Iowa to expand passenger rail from Iowa City. But for years, state leaders have talked about and conducted studies on what should be done. Will passenger rail ever shift from dreaming to doing? KCRG TV9's Addison Speck tells us why some are ready to go and others are hesitant.
Some cross their fingers that passenger rail tracks will eventually connect eastern Iowa to Chicago.
The city views it not only as certainly a transportation advantage and a quality of life type of amenity for our community, but we also see it as a prime economic development tool.
Supporters say without the investment from the state, Iowa will be the missing piece of the puzzle.
There's a regional network growing around us. The state of Illinois, Chicago being the hub, and it goes up into Michigan and Wisconsin, Minneapolis, Indiana, even into Missouri.
But not everyone sees a perfect plan. They look at the cost.
Passenger trains can take up the space of 2 or 3 freight trains. When a freight train's making you $100,000, you're starting to look at a passenger train costing you a couple $100,000.
And skeptics also question how both freight and passenger rail will work together.
Here, 40 to 50% of all freight moves by rail. If we did what Europe did and threw the freight off the rail, you're looking at 2 to 3 times the number of trucks on the highway.
But in November, the Iowa DOT's passenger rail study will be complete, and those in favor hope lawmakers will see this as a positive investment in the state of Iowa.
I think it's hard because you can't see it here now. It was here and it's gone, and we can't look at it and even get a sense of what the potential may be.
In Iowa City, Addison Speck, KCRG TV 9 News.
If you'd like more information about the Iowa DOT study, we do have a link on KCRG.com. There you can also tell us more about the idea of building a passenger rail line from Iowa City east to Chicago. Just log on to Facebook and post under the comments section of the KCRG Facebook page. Another rite of spring in Iowa City as University of Iowa students gather for the Nearly Naked Mile. The annual walk or run event is a clothing drive with all donations going to United Action for Youth. The event is sponsored by the UI's Alumni Association group called Students Today, Alumni Tomorrow. Event organizers say being nearly naked is optional, always is, but requires a donation of at least one piece of clothing to participate.
And all of the clothing donations goes to the United Action for Youth program. That is a local Iowa City organization that helps the local families of Iowa City and Johnson County.
The event started up at 2 p.m. Some chose to race in costume with questionable fashion sense instead of stripping down for the run. Last week, the streets of downtown Cedar Rapids were filled with green. On this Saturday, red being the predominant color to cover the streets for the St. Joseph's Day Parade. The red marks the traditional Czech heritage, with the parade being held in Czech Village. Hundreds of people came out to enjoy the parade throughout the afternoon. St. Joseph's is usually celebrated on March 19th, but this time, to accommodate all the parade goers, including that person, it was today. If you want to see more of today's parade, connect with KCRG.com. There you'll find a photo gallery of today's event. Healthcare concern for the disabled and mentally challenged. People gather to talk about problems with the current system. Those specific concerns are coming up. A polar plunge with far from polar temps. Special Olympics supporters gather for that organization's fun day. We'll take you there. First, here's a look at the 3 most talked about stories on KCRG.com for this Saturday. Stay with your 24-hour news source, KCRG TV 9.
Live from your 24-hour news source in high definition, Chris Earl, Charlene Malin, and John Sears. This is KCRG TV 9 News at 10.